Thank you very much. A very good afternoon once again. Simply delighted to have a very eminent panel with us this afternoon. The introductions have been made. We have a very good, interesting mix of developers, architects, and we have a consultant in between to basically put them and make the most of this session. I'm going to step back and speak a few lines about the real estate sector first. You know, back in 2005 to 8, I think there was this wave which was all about India opportunities. And I think every geography and every segment of real estate was viewed as an opportunity by developers, investors, and occupiers, all the stakeholders. And everybody wanted to do shopping centers. I was witness right in this hotel in Renaissance, where I had seen letter of intent was signed even before we finished our cup of tea. And not one, by the way, multiple. And we were talking about roughly about 1,500 shopping centers at that point of time. We were also talking about approximately 100,000 rooms in the hotel, and the example that was given was New York has more than 75,000 rooms. Why can't country as a nation, over a billion population, have 100,000 rooms to begin with? And why not more? So rationale was very compelling. I think for some reason the developers had the desire to build hotels. I think it was just a wave. They probably wanted to own a beautiful asset so they can go and have a private cabin up on a higher floor, probably get their daughters and sons married in the same hotel. You know, it was just a craze across at that point of time. And all those hotels got built. By the way, some of those hotels got built over spec. So you would do a budget hotel, but it will be built as luxury. So I can give you an example. So in Pune, the Marriott Hotel, built in ICC by Atul Charodia Panchil, became JW recently. And like that example exists across. Over spec, more money spent. And the overriding principle behind all of that was India was a great story, and no doubt it is. But for some reason, all investors and developers jumped in, did the NPV of next 40 years, and discounted in 2005 to 8, and said, let's value these assets today only. And that's what we did, and that's what led to a rage in land prices. So from there, the invention happened that not every segment of real estate on standalone basis would actually make sense because of valuation, because of construction costs, because of the market dynamics. And today we are at a stage where we know rentals are not sustainable for a kind of capital that you put for land, for a shopping center, the construction that you do, the cost which gets added, which I'm told by CREDAI, 35% of the cost goes into approval of the projects. That's how it adds to the... And at the same time, we have retailers who are trying to build a business in a very difficult environment, and they can only give you a revenue share, and they expect you to go and borrow capital from the bank and construct, while you cannot give them a minimum guarantee and assured rent. So it's a very challenging environment. So the bottom line, therefore, is, and it's a discussion open to all the panelists, and we'll go in a manner that probably would be the best, is when you look at the challenges and opportunities of an integrated, which seems to be the mantra today, what are the design challenges, construction challenges, financing and feasibility challenges, and of course, the exit. While you may exit residential by sale of apartments, you can't do that for hotel and shopping center because you have to build, lease, and then eventually think of how you're going to sell it later. So we're going to touch on these aspects, and I'm going to start with the panel with Mr. Mantri first because of regulatory environment, okay? Because that does create challenges of its own kind, especially for integrated. One heads up could be things like parking, safety, state of mind of a residential occupier when you do a mixed use. And then I'll move to our architects friends here to talk about the design challenges. And then next we'll open up the discussion further. Over to you, sir.
Thanks. Thanks, Sanjay. Basically, if you recollect, as rightly pointed out, previously the developers were planning huge. I think many developers planned the mall, and on one Gurgaon road, I think almost 80 malls were planned. The situation is that, forget about the retail shop, nobody is there to even open up the offices on the higher floor. And the unfortunate part of the many of the Indian developer, what our colleagues did, that they sold each and every shop to every individual investors. Suppose a mall consists of 100 shops, they sold to 100 individual investors. If you go in a northern region, there's a very trend. With the result that it has become completely unplanned development. You can see 4 shoe shops coming in a row, and eventually majority of these malls have failed completely. Just to give an example, one mall is there at Worli. I had happened to visit a few years back when it was open. It was completely jam-packed and fully. I went 2 days before because it's less crowded comparatively. You can park the car opposite to mall only now. And I could see 5% of the shops are open, 95% are closed. I don't want to name it, but then majority of you must be knowing it, at Worli in Mumbai. Now, tell me one thing, with this 95% unoccupied portion, how one can work it out? Now, slowly he is giving to car showrooms on the ground floor. I don't know, upper floors are vacant. So similar situation I have seen in some of the international destinations also in Kuala Lumpur and all, where 2-3 levels have been designed for the mall, that's a retail completely. Upper levels were designed for offices, and they have a flexibility depending on the demand, they adjust it. And some portion of the property is converted into hotel and service apartment. Today the challenge before the developers are many. First of all, the retail rentals are not very attractive. Because if you want to deal with a big store, anchor store, they don't pay anything, 20, 25 rupees, 30 rupees, 40 rupees, and so on, which is not going to cover up the construction cost. Forget about 25 rupees. Now people come with percentage offer. They say, sir, 4% of turnover. मैंने बोला भाई मैं किसको बिठाऊंगा turnover गिनने के लिए every day. So it's a very difficult task. And remember, Indian banking industry is not used to this so-called 4% turnover notion. They say we want fixed rental to come into, to securitize the asset, LRD. Because ultimately developer may have a limitation of the money. So he go to the bank and take a loan, and now you tell me 4% of the sales, retail store, how do we pay off to bank? So it is very complicated.
Can you throw some light on the regulatory aspect?
Now, coming back to this, second challenge before us, I think mall needs a different kind of the ball set. We follow the lease model. The parking requirements are different. If you talk a residential development, usually they are governed under a different regulatory act. So the residential development will be a completely different ball game where we are supposed to sell the product to the consumer because hardly any leasing happen in the residential complexes. And go back to hospitality, it follows a different safety norms because it is considered as a public building. Mall as well as the hospitality, both the businesses are considered in a different ball game. Now, challenge before all of us is that if you want to fit all in one room, all in one single project, it's a big task because you may have 1 or 2 floor retail floor, then you may have a commercial floors, and you may have a residential one.
Does the time get stretched because of that? Because there are majority of locations are not viable for shopping center on standalone. And if you want to cross-subsidize and you go for approval to the government, does that bring a new element of enhanced cost?
Yes. Because the construction cost in a retail is going to be expensive. The office is different because you have a different floor plate. Office or hospitality is going to be different, whereas residential is different. And everything putting under one building is really challenging because you have different column design, different floor design, and like that, Indian culture is that people are not very comfortable. But if you have a large layout, say 100-acre township or say 10-acre or 50-acre area, wherein different area you designate for a different purposes, it could be viable. I think that is a better model comparatively to work it out. So you can keep the retail separate, office space separate, and residential separate with a different access, and you follow different norms while selling these products to the different consumers.
So it may be more viable for townships where you have larger land parcels and therefore you would be able to subdivide the land and do a development and do exit. But within the city where the land parcels are limited in terms of sizes, you have a constraint.
Yeah, I think I fully believe a large parcel, because in every city, metro like Mumbai, you may not have within the city township project, you can have in peripheral area. Of course, they are very viable in the peripheral area because you have a retail customer to come into the mall, as well as the hospitality can take off, as well as the residential do well. I always feel as a developer that whatever you make a profit in the residential segment, it becomes a cross subsidization to the hospitality, because I don't think much profits could be made in that business, as well as the retail space where you can serve. It becomes a complementary to each other. It complements your residential sales can do better if you have a retail area within the same campus or close by campus.
So good to see a developer saying, I'll give you low rent. If there's a mixed-use township, it's okay. Yeah. I'll move on to Stephen and Vivek. Stephen, to begin with you on the design challenges.
Yeah. Okay. When I started my career, I thought I needed to be creative in space and volume. But the older I get, we need to be creative in finance. So if you are an architect out there, I would advise you now to take an MBA, because you're going to need it. I think one of the challenges, and I think because this is a shopping centre forum, to look at it from a shopping centre point of view, I think one of the successes of a shopping centre is its access and its parking. Now, obviously, when you put a hotel or maybe residential or commercial alongside or on top of a shopping centre, that makes the parking a lot more difficult. Shoppers want easy and convenient parking. But when you've got other uses, then not only do you have to satisfy the regulations in terms of the numbers of cars for each of those uses, but you've got to be able to successfully partition them or zone them so that, particularly where residential is concerned, I think people who stay in a hotel can be a little bit more, they put up with a lot more. But if you're living in a place, and shopping centres by nature are places which generate noise. There's plant that usually is running throughout the night. There's a lot of refuse. And I think to have to live on a site with that can be quite a problem. So I think the design challenge where you've got residential with this, or even with hotel, is to be able to adequately cater for each of those sectors sufficiently, so that the one doesn't create too much of an interference to the other one. So it's a very delicate balance when you're trying to design like that. It's one thing if you've got a large parcel of land and you can build individual units. You can build a shopping centre, you can build a hotel, you can build offices, each with its own parking. But the challenge in India is that because of the high land costs and the small parcels of land, mixed use has to by nature go vertically. And that's when you're into problems, not only in the parking, but in services particularly. How do you handle all the different services that are associated with each of those sectors?
I feel because of 2-3 different reasons, the mixed-use development took place in India. With me, what happened? There were few projects where the design, the input changed because of the regulation. In many cities, in many states, the DC regulation, they changed the DC regulation, they increased the FSI. So initially we were going for only mall, and then we had to construct additional towers, maybe for hotel, maybe for commercial offices. That was the main reason. The other reason was because of this economical meltdown in 2008, many of my clients, they converted mall projects into residential. So I have got examples in Mumbai where more than 6 of my projects where the floor plate was ranging from 1 lakh square feet to 3 lakh square feet. I'm talking about the floor plate. We designed as a mall. We executed 3 basements on site, and on the ground floor we decided to convert it into residential. And some of the projects where it even went more haphazard, where we converted them into mall plus hotel, then eventually mall plus commercial, then finally mall plus residential. And now the projects are under construction. All these changes.
So the takeaway is the residential is increasingly viewed as the cross-subsidizing development agent.
Always, because that was safer.
What happens if there is a residential bubble burst?
See, residential bubble burst will not happen unless...
I'm generally an optimist, but I'm just challenging the panel.
Unless our population really stops increasing. We have got tremendous vacuum for that. But there was one more reason why this mixed-use development happened. The third reason was in tier 2 cities, I have got few projects where they are outskirts of the city, and the developer, before he wants to launch his project, residential project on site, he wants to show maybe retail, maybe some banqueting activity so that the place gets some landmark destination. So that is how the mixed-use development has started. The challenges are many. If
there is an old Indian model, which is called Niche Dukaan Upar Makan.
Always successful.
If you look at, I don't know, some of you are from Delhi. If you go back to Delhi master plan, all the shopping arcades, whether it's Basant Lok, Saket, GK1, GK2, N Block, M Block, ground floor retail, upper floor residential.
See, I have got few projects where the plot is around 30,000 square meter. 40,000 square meter plot, you can always segregate your residential so that the parking issue was we are talking about is not there. We are talking about mixed-use land development, but then our retail or hospitality and residential, they're segregated properly. So if the plot is much smaller than that, then your problems will be
more challenges.
There will be more challenges. If the property is in acres, we are doing few properties in acres, like 100 acres, 150 acres. We are doing in Nagpur, we are doing in place like Pune. You will see on my stall.
Sure.
So there we have got galleria, shopping galleria, huge shopping galleria. We have got almost 4 acre of club and hospitality project, but they are segregated. But still it is mixed use development. It is doing very well. Place like Pune, the rates are better than our Bombay suburbs. So sometimes even that is more.
So there is an argument for this, and therefore that's the way to go, at least in the current economic scenario.
Yeah, always.
So let's move to the next leg, which is equally more important because, you know, L&T is been into contracting and development, and they have done some very large projects and also committing to some even more larger projects where shopping center is a big part. So I'll open the discussion with Biswas and then go to Manoj. Throw some light. Are we talking sense, or we just, you know, or you have a different view?
See, any problem or any issue, and the answer to or the resolution to that issue will depend on where you are looking at it from. If you bring your finger too close to your eyes, you will not be able to see. We all know that retail worldwide is a vertical which gives the highest return over a period of time. Now, over a period of time is the key word.
So
Here
most of people thought that only.
We have lost sight of the fact that retail gives return only over a period of time. You have to understand that it is going to give you return only maybe in 8 or 10 years. So what initial mistakes, as Mr. Mantri was saying, that the developers did was that this is again another vertical which will give me quick returns. Let me sell it off and get my quick money out. But that is not the way to do. Now,
I actually have an argument that all those developers who actually built the mall and sold it as shops, they actually made more money than the developers who were holding it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, can you guys in the audience challenge me on that?
No, but those same developers also burnt their fingers when they were developing some more of those kind of.
Okay, it's an argument in defense, but I can tell you the guys who actually carried money They sold those Hira Pannas there. You know what I'm saying?
See, in this circle, someone will lose. Someone somewhere will definitely lose.
So tenants lost.
Tenant or the investor who bought
No.
these shops, they
No,
lost money.
the
Because
last
see,
guy who bought is
nobody-
losing
nobody.
as of now. So
No, I
someone
agree
is
with that.
losing.
I agree. Just giving a perspective. Actually, the argument was a lot of developers said, let me hold, I will build, manage it better, because that's the way to go. That's what all consultants said. That's what all architects said.
Yep.
But they actually lost money. They actually lost money.
But maybe they did not manage it properly. Means if we have to really give an example of centers who have done really well over a period of time, then there are quite a few names which come into our mind who have done it, made
Of
it,
course.
and managed it. So making it is not
True.
the only part.
I think-
Managing it
True.
becomes more important.
I think globally it's a no-brainer that this is the way to go, to build and sustain the asset and manage it. And that's how you make money.
So
It's just that India is so unique.
No. So issue in India is that we look at it from the point of view of, okay, let me try and make money within this 3, 4, 5 year period. That is the maximum patience that I have with my money. I don't know what the system is going to do, what the market will be. Let me put in money and look to get out of this in 4 to 5 years. But that is not retail. Then you should not get into retail.
So it's not a real estate development. It's a retail enterprise of its own. If you want to commit to this, that's the way to do.
You have to get into this.
Especially when you're getting an opportunity to
With the
cross-subsidize.
Yeah, no, with the knowledge that this is a 10 years minimum time period game.
Sure. So with the integrated angle,
Yeah, so that is where this becomes that this is not about retail being adding something to it, but rather retail means from the Indian point of view, it is rather the retail which is seeking support from the other verticals, especially residential. So here the developers maybe will have to do a fine balancing wherein their cash requirements are met from their cash out kind of vertical, which is residential, which gives you your cash back in 4 or 5 years. And maybe that money is utilized to increase their staying power in other verticals, which is
and benefit long term.
Yeah, offices and
So I wanted to ask, does retail, and you know, Manoj, you can also step in, and other panelists can also step in. Does retail really enhances the value of integrated development? So if I'm building residential or office along with retail and hotel, does my residential values go up?
Well, since we were on some Hindi adages, so I would say that there's a simple saying which says, "Jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai." And what I mean by that is that whatever is visible as a development, and what we were talking some time back of, people investing into hotels because they had certain personal thing that, they want to have a property which they can showcase, etc. So same way, the mall or a hospitality development within a residential, a mixed-use development including residential, mall and hospitality, the residential would definitely drive a premium over a period of time because now you are next to a quality, high-profile establishment, and there are many such malls which we could name, and there are also many hotel chains which we could name. So what happens is, like, if you see certain developments which are coming across near Delhi, now some of their selling points is because the sports facilities they have, the international sports locations that they have within their complex, which is driving value and which is driving investment and people who are willing to now shift to those areas, even though today they are a little far from. So yes, developments which are there, where there is a high profile establishment or let's say a high class establishment, it will definitely drive value.
Okay. I'm moving to, so you were saying something?
Add something. I think you were just talking the mixed development. Let me just share my experience. I visited one project in Los Angeles, LA, and it was exactly what we are discussing today. What that developer did, he built shops on the ground floor, and all the branded shops are there on the ground floor. I'm sure he must be following the lease model. And they were the best of the best shop, Gucci, Prada, everything is there on the ground level. It was about 7-storied building. On the upper area, you have the beautiful residences, and they were, I believe, on outright sale, what I could collect and understand from the catalog. In the campus, he built one hotel and service apartment, half sharing, something like that. And that model was working very, very good. Again, one thing I noticed, it was just opposite to one mall. I happened to visit the mall also. The mall was 50% unoccupied. But this complex was doing wonderful. Each and every shop, मतलब जो आपने कहावत की नीचे दुकान ऊपर मकान, शायद ये कुछ हद तक सही. Because see what happened, what's the difference I'll tell you. People are sometimes reluctant to go to the mall, 3rd floor, 4th floor, 5th floor, something. A mentality is that. Our general mentality, the ground floor shopping works well, ground and lower level, upper level. And then as the floors keep on going high, people has a resistance to go on the upper level, number one. Secondly, with making all the shop facing on the roads, with branded, again he has a retail stores also like Carefree and all those things. And everything was working very, very well. He created in between landscape garden, and I think all the mixed combination was doing wonderful. And I believe the developer may not have a cash flow problem because whatever profits he make in the residential complex, immediately he is investing. Probably I feel this model is a better model than creating a mall campus, maybe a retail space complex.
Just one question. Is it city-centric or?
It was
outer?
city-centric.
City-centric.
Maybe about 10-acre piece of property, not very big, 10, 15 acre, but beautifully developed. I think one of the best development I have seen. It's a mixed development. And actually he was doing better than the exclusive mall.
Well, one argument could be in the, we are in a shopping center. We need to protect shopping center interest here. We are increasingly moving in a direction where shopping center is not a good idea, which is not a good thing.
No, plus,
one more thing, I'll add it.
Yeah.
Even some of you might have seen, Kolkata's this Ambuja's mall is there, retail. Yeah. Now the beauty of that particular complex, they give very reasonable rental values. The rentals are not expensive as the mall what would be. Generally what the charges we do.
We'll have a question from the audience very soon.
You have a high-rise building wherein he has floated the balance FSI, and ground level he has kept it low, and every separate structure is there. So I think that model has also worked well. He has did at Calcutta, and probably he is doing at Raipur also. And that model has worked well, wherein very good rentals he is giving and cross-subsidization in the residential he is
I
using.
think we should deliberate on that for sure.
If I was to add to what Mr. Mantri was saying, see, if we are looking at a multi-use development, which let us assume for the time being that the shopping center is a major component of that. What is very important, which my architect friends would have to support, is that the vision of the entire project, how it is integrated with each other and how the connectivity is, because the residential guy would not like disturbance from, let's say, a banquet wedding which is happening in the hotel or some large function in the mall, while at the same time the hotel guy would not like to get disturbed by, children running across the complex, or for that matter, some maybe high volume, high decibel event in the mall. So the vision of that project, from a design brief to the actual design, and how the entire complex is integrated with each other, such that each of them are together yet separate, and they still have a connectivity so that you can kind of move across the various elements. Of course, it's not easy because I'm sure my friends from the architecture firm would bear me out on that, as they were already stating.
No, I agree. And I want to very quickly move to construction, but you may want to say before I say.
Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, I've never known a developer to lose money. That's a new animal in my life. But I think that the question of whether a shopping centre adds value to a hotel or to residential, I think one has got to be careful that we've heard a lot this morning about market research and about demographics. And I think whenever you do a mixed-use development, you have to ensure that each sector, the demand is there for each sector.
So there is a rationale for every element of the development or every segment of real estate, because it has to be a location which is God-sent, where hotel will work, retail will work, residential will work, office will work, IT park or front office, everything would work.
And I think having said that, it's also got to be designed equitably. In other words, you can't put a 5-star hotel with a B-grade shopping centre. You've got to have a 5-star hotel and an A-grade shopping centre. They have to match.
Has to make sense.
And high-end apartments have to be with a good shopping centre.
So integrated, in other words, would mean complementary. Sorry.
No, actually, see, once we conclude that the developer who is developing the retail and he is convinced that he is willing, particularly in cities like Bombay where the developments are going vertical, believe me, if you are going to put one use above other, there are huge challenges, huge design challenges, because retail has a different kind of a column. It will prefer to have a different kind of a column design. Offices will have a different kind of a column design.
I think one element which I'm sure architects will support, for residential development, imagine how many wet shafts you have to create to take the drainage and the water supply versus office.
And I'm coming to that. Vertical transportation. Suppose if you are going vertical and if you are putting one use above the other, just imagine retail has a different kind of vertical transportation on different locations. And offices will have a different kind of altogether. They will have one central core which is going right up, which will actually puncture your retail plate if you are putting, one on top of the other. So these are challenges which are huge. Means only a designer, architect of very huge experience, having done so many projects, can actually come up with some feasible ideas. In India, we will actually need to look at those kind of people who have done those kind of projects.
Which are very few.
And then comes construction. Then construction is a completely different animal.
Also, from construction point of view, I think Sunil, you can also throw light, is the sequential of construction for wet, dry areas, is very different, right? Imagine a hotel being constructed. You cannot just go in a manner the way you do the office building. It has to be completely different ballgame. Can you throw some light?
In my opinion, I think doing all the complexes under one roof, for example, a retail, you are saying hospitality, and maybe residential. Let's presume it's a 50-story tower and maybe 3-4 floor retail, maybe 10-20 story you have hospitality, and on the top you have a residential, because residential gives you more money, so you want to cross subsidize. Maybe a biggest challenge for the architect to design the building, because you are taking everyone vertically up, and traffic flow, the parking issues, safety, because the public places has a different norms. You may have a theater also in the mall. Many of the malls have a theaters now. So I think it is going to be a biggest challenge, because generally I'll prefer to avoid that complex. In case you have a slightly bigger land, and design the residential building separately and keep the retail separately. This is my personal view, because it is going to incur a huge cost. I've tried in one of the design,
I think in India,
both combination,
for example,
it's very difficult. Very difficult. So we'll always prefer to keep a retail separate, office space separate, and the residential tower separate. If you can do, or otherwise you have to make a separate entry and separate wings if it is possible. But designing under one roof is going to be biggest challenge.
Vivek wanted to say something.
In fact, in Mumbai, this is not allowed. Residential building with shopping only on ground floor, that is what is allowed. The time you go for even first floor shopping, it's not allowed. So they know the problem. So if you are trying to make a mall or a shopping center of 2-3 floors and then mixing it with a hotel, in fact, star category hotel needs to be a separate plot. So they know the basic challenge. We are doing few developments here where we have got Radisson, we have got commercial building in the same building, we have got little bit of shopping, and then we have got residential, but it is again a separate piece. Same complex, separate piece. That is what is permissible. Ground plus one, it is showroom. I have seen the plans. I am doing exactly opposite.
Here, man.
I'm doing exactly opposite Chitrakoot. So
just to wake up the audience, a round of applause for the panelists.
Well, then I am selling something else that
You're
means.
really getting quality information.
on one side of Link Road, you have got your project. On the other side, I have got Chitrakoot. It is almost 40,000 square meter plot.
Okay, I'm the referee. I set the dispute in order. I think let's move on. Yes. So, moving on to financing and the viability, because we want to do mixed use, because retail cannot be cross-subsidized unless we do something of that sort. Or on standalone basis, I think with the exception of few, retail may not work everywhere. And some of the largest development, whether it's Sushil Mantri's development in Koramangala and Bangalore, or a development by DLF and Hines on Golf Road in Delhi, and many other parts of the country, it's a big subject of debate. So, and the fundamental line, Stephen also said, is the financing, the viability. So, I can understand it's complicated from design point of view. It's complicated from construction point of view. Regulatory hurdles are also there. And the value proposition that we discussed, whether does it really enhances the value, may depending on which location you are. Yes. So the argument, and then of course we know that the regulatory hurdle of getting a large project environmentally approved and all that adds 35% to the cost.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Because even the buyer for each class of the asset, for example, the retail or the hospitality or the residential, is a different one. The investors are different. Even the private equities are different.
But today,
so it is becoming very complicated
to
find a single buyer for all this mixed combination.
The problem is that there is, you're right, there are just handful of investors who are looking at retail. And nobody wants to look at retail on standalone basis, with the exception of few. Yeah. But that may be an opportunity for certain long-term players, the way I see it, in the times to come when the market conditions slightly better.
If I was to add to that, you see, if ultimately the objective of the entire development is to exit at some stage, then I think you need to plan for that exit from day one. A lot of developments otherwise have certain services, facilities which are absolutely overlapping, which if you have to divest it, let's say if you have 4 or 5 assets within the same complex, and you want to divest asset by asset, then you have a big mess. So if you are planning to divest and exit maybe in due course, so
that's what Sunil said.
yeah,
I think
so that is one.
Yeah.
And second part
of land, conveying that separately,
yes,
in a separate vehicle,
yeah, absolutely,
it will be a huge challenge otherwise.
And second part is that both the development, which is at the construction and at the fit out and other stages, and second is the exit process. Both need to be staged very well, and it has to be envisioned. So as we are talking, you can see that it's not just a cross-subsidy benefit that you get out of it. There are a lot many issues when you get into mixed development, which needs to be understood very well before you get into it.
Sure. So just to give the audience a very good example of what happened many years ago was Phoenix High Street in Lower Parel, a textile mill with the chimneys above McDonald's, industrial where the looms used to work at one time were offices. And then we went and demolished a part of the mill and we built a Palladium Mall. And then we had certain high street created within. And then I know they built some residential towers alongside to create some cash flow for the project. Was a kind of an integrated, may not be the most, the latest example, but it was actually, and it seems to be very successful even now. Any comments on that one? Or it's a sensitive question that I've asked?
I think it's a best development. It's a mixed classic example, and I believe this is the mall which I feel is doing the best in the city of the Mumbai. I think
it's also a monopoly. Right?
It's a monopoly. See, 2-3 advantages they have. One is a large format. It's a big space. Secondly, they have made a combination of smaller, smaller, cheaper type of the shops also, and very high-end also, in Palladium and old type store also. Third, they have the hospitality. Of course, hospitality has its own challenge. It may take a little long time by the time they get sustaining.
It took only 7 years to begin with.
Yeah. So, I think that is challenging one. But the residential did well. Residential, when they started, before the mall, they could make a good cash flow. And it was that time, olden time, the flats were saying 10,000-12,000 rupees, which was the highest rate during that time in the Parel area.
In
So
the
I think-
township segment, I would say Hiranani Gardens, even hospitals, shopping arcades, Magarpatta City. We have a Oberoi exquisite development going on. And there are many other examples. I think we have a story. So I just want to make sure that there is some positive side of this as well, and we're not going too negative.
No.
Suhas.
One of the special categories in mixed use development, which I was telling you, is the transit oriented.
Yeah.
Transit oriented developments are a different different. It's a different ball game.
If you
Why?
can
Because-
expand on that for everybody.
Yeah, we are now right now doing one of the largest projects in India with a total capacity of about 6 million square feet, out of which we are doing the first phase 3 million. 1 million is retail and 2 million is offices. It actually envelopes a suburban railway station.
Okay.
Now, the railway station adds a completely new dynamic to the entire project, wherein the uses are very complementary to each other. Now, the railway station complements the offices, the retail complements the offices complements the retail. So, suddenly the viability for the retailers who are going to be in my mall increases by, I would say, about 15-20%. So, the rentals become that much more affordable to them. Similarly with offices. Having said that, there are huge challenges because there is railways, because they are very particular about the safety aspect of it, the traffic flow of, there are now 3-4 different kind of users, the railway users.
Correct.
The users who will be actually using the railway premises.
True.
They need to be segregated from the office goers. The office goers need to be segregated from the retail goers. Those challenges are there. But then the overall viability, the overall return from that project goes up a little because it gives a synergistic effect.
So it has higher value proposition, probably the way the airports are. So maybe the Dial in Delhi and hopefully Mile in Mumbai soon, and subsequently many others to come by. That's a good example. I think Citco did that in Navi Mumbai in Vashi. They did a crude example, which was a good attempt. But I think what that you are doing, probably doing slightly in a more organized fashion.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of potential in that. And an example I can give from my own country or from Botswana, where we, the railways there had a piece of land adjacent to the station in Gaborone, and the centre was designed in such a way that on one side of the centre there's a bus station, on the other side is the station, and you actually exit the railway via a bridge through the shopping mall. So you've got a ready-made footfall of millions of people travelling there each month.
So I think India has opportunities where you have railway land because that's one of the biggest landlords after defense and few other government bodies. But whatever I know about the government agencies, they are governed by Central Vigilance Committee guidelines, which means they have to sell the land to the highest bidder. They're emotionally detached with what the developer will do. They have no desire to cross-subsidize retail. And therefore, the highest bidder gets it, and that person may not do retail because it's not viable. That's India.
Yeah, that's where once again I will say the time frame that you are looking at has to be 10 years. You cannot lose that sight. 10 years.
10 years from now, we may age too fast. 10 years
Here,
is a long period.
can I add something? Because now the railway BKC plot is on for sale, and they are
Correct.
estimating about 3,000 rupees, 3,000 crore rupees to be generated.
FSI cost approximately?
I need to work it out because it's a
20,000
4
plus?
FAR. Yeah, it's expensive, but nevertheless, you have a clear parcel of 10-acre land. Getting 10-acre land is difficult. What I feel in the coming time, probably, the very high-end retail would be a challenge because that will be a different segment altogether. If you typically see all the international destination, maybe Hong Kong or maybe some of the Canadian countries or some of the couple of destination, the railway has become a biggest shopping hub, the railway stations and all. Indian Railway has almost 40,000 hectare of the land available with them. And I don't know if they try to dispose it of, couple of billions they can make it. Now, every station or every place is at a prime location. A VT or Bandra or Andheri or Dadar, you cannot have a prime location than this. In the coming time, probably, because they want to monetize the land and with a 30-year or 60-year, and it is again a restricted commercial use. So all the retail in the coming time, 5-year, 10-year down the line, will be near to the railway and underground to the railway, probably. The retail mall you will see, but they will be very few, but the majority of the development will come underground the railway, and these things like metro and all will get connected, and they will have a huge shopping areas. And probably, as he rightly pointed out, the rentals may be cross-subsidized, which is a demand from our retailers community, that they want cheap rentals. Then only they can sustain.
So my impression is, and you may, beat me to this argument. So from cross-subsidizing, we're taking retail underground. Go down there, incorporate from there. That's where you get low rent. That's cross-subsidized to the limit. But yes, I agree. That's a logical. As long as integrated, it gives the right environment. And you've seen it in Singapore and Hong Kong. It works brilliantly. So we are towards the closing end of our discussion. The only discussion point left was exits. In case, and a lot of the real estate development actually depended on private equity and capital. I think the developers have opened their mind to taking equity, although they still think that equity is not equity, is debt. And, they're not willing to give that kind of return, but in the current scheme of things, I think they have no choice but to go with it. I'm hoping that the equity will be true, pure equity. Is not that in the times to come, because the expectation of return is just too high for most development to sustain. What is your view? One is the foreign direct investment policy to allow capital only in the greenfield, brownfield projects to happen. Suppose that there's an opportunity where a ready shopping center, a foreign direct investment is allowed to actually buy those assets and then turn around and convert them into better shopping, better managed shopping centers and value. And therefore give some of the developers the exit, or some of the better designed malls and shopping centers built today over a period of time get an exit. What's your view for everybody, Sunil and Viswas?
See, as far as my view on that is concerned, FDI needs to change. It has to change. Because Indian developers have two basic reasons. One, they are not willing to see beyond 4 or 5 years.
4 or 5 years, too long a period.
And two, they do not have that much depth of
that much equity to really put into the project.
So you definitely need funds to come in from abroad. Now, if the funds are going to come in from abroad, it cannot be the way it is structured as of now. So it has to change. That is one. For the developers, what it can mean or it may mean is that if you have accidentally, thinking that it will give you exit in 3, 4, 5 years. If you have accidentally gone into retail, then maybe you can get your cash out by way of some LRD and stay put for some years. And when you get your valuation, maybe by that time FDI policy changes.
I think government need to relook at their existing policy. Please understand, in Singapore and all, everywhere, what we see the shopping mall, it is built by A developer. It is sold to then B investment trust, who get the money at a cheaper rate or the investment rate, and they invest in these shopping malls. The problem in India with the developers is that if we borrow the money from the bank, it is expensive. Let me tell you, a 13% rate I am trying with 10-year tenure. Half the nationalized bank are saying no. It is difficult to beat it. So the cost of the fund today, for example,
surprised they're saying yes to finance shopping center.
So I think it is the biggest challenge.
Agree?
So the difficulty for all of us, the cost of the fund to the Indian real estate developer, because we come under commercial real estate category, they are anything between 14 to 16%. I term private equity as a luxury to me, a 5-star deluxe hotel, because they expect anything between 20 to 30% IRR. So you can't look at them.
Which to them, when they look at money in Singapore, is still 17-18%. That is if the rupee is stable.
Yeah. That's their
I mean,
comparison.
I'm just speaking on behalf of private equity since
I know,
developers are
I
looking
know.
at different.
Anyway, so their money is expensive. So the only option is that to allow the foreign investors to invest into shopping malls, the commercial complexes, or the hospitality project. Many of the hospitality project we are seeing, it is eventually owned by the foreigners who have the money access at a cheaper rate. So down the line, I believe it will be a good step that government gives the permission wherein the complete retail complex or the shopping center or the mixed development, we are able to give it. So I think that could be the only way wherein developer can excel.
Anybody wants to add to that? Otherwise, I think one hope that I've seen recently is real estate investment trust, which is right now for office, but it's obvious that it will be eventually for retail and other commercial assets, including hotels. I also believe a lot of sovereign money. So it's a government money. So Dutch pension fund, Canadian pension fund, which is seeking for 10-year horizon, the point that you made, it has finally come to India, including Abu Dhabi and Qatar investments. And by the way, their return expectations are slightly less than the equity, which is great news. So you will finally have access to cheap capital for shopping center development through these vehicles and investment opportunities. So I wanted to make sure that I end this discussion on a positive note and give everybody the opportunity to ask some relevant questions. I know one for sure which will come from Calcutta. That's a far end of this hall. He's not raised the hand yet, but I expect that. And there's anybody else in the audience, of course. Over to you all.
Yeah, good afternoon. Sanjeev here.
Thank you.
Of course, I've been part of a mixed-use development. Stephen's company, Bentel, did it, which was South City. It's very successful in Calcutta. There are a couple of things which I feel needs to be addressed. One is that the government certainly needs to think about changing and planning better, because when they're giving permissions, now the second mall the third mall actually, but Quest that we've just opened, it's a standalone mall. But the government has to start thinking about how much retail is important when you start doing residential. I'm just trying to say that if everybody's going to do residential, these people who stay in residentials need to have access to retail for food, etc., etc. They can't be traveling 10 kilometers to buy an apple. It'll be ridiculous. So I think in China we have seen where, ghar niche, matlab dukaan niche, the old model, which some amount of retail has to be part and parcel of a development. A shopping center in isolation can come in a certain area designate. Now, in the city of Kolkata, I think they have said no more shopping centers. I personally cannot understand that you've got so many millions and millions of people and the demand for good retail space is there, and you're not going to give permission because the elephant in the room is actually the road outside the shopping center. That becomes another issue because it cannot take the traffic, it's not able to do it. So I think when the permissions are being handed over and residential is being developed, I think the process of understanding what percentage must go towards retail should be planned now and implemented in all the cities. I'm not just talking about Kolkata, but if you see, we are mega cities now of 15, 18 million, and I see figures being thrown about in millions and millions of figures of people. You cannot exist in an unplanned and unstructured manner. I think the government really needs, and I think this forum, headed by Amitabh and all, which Sanjay, you are part of, Anuj is part of, I think really needs to start telling them that they cannot just go on a blanket, because it's creating a lot of problem for retail development. You see, first of all, we don't have brands. I've been harping on this, as long as I've been a retailer. Then when the retail brands want to come in, there's no space because it's all hogged up. Now, it's a catch-22 situation. The place becomes expensive. You can't make it. It's a hodgepodge thing. So, is that how we really want to leave behind for our kids? I mean, this is what we got.
No, it's a good takeaway. The point is that we, as a community, have voiced our concern to the government at the center and at the state through various bodies, including CREDAI, FICCI, CII, but I think we've done very little or almost nothing on the shopping center and even warehousing logistics, which is a big area of concern. Land is very expensive even on the outer periphery. So I think something needs to be done, and maybe we need to play a larger role.
And every time we talk about, at least in shopping centers, we've been limited to city centers. You know, we have to take into account that, of course, we have not been able to even substantially fulfill the demand for people in the cities. That infrastructure doesn't allow us to go out on the periphery. I'm not talking specifically, I'm talking general. Now, all of this put together, there is some amount of responsibility the government has to take, that if they don't build the roads, they don't throw the, you know, how are you going to even, the most important thing, the most important data that everybody looks at is new sales, new home sales. That drives an economy. You know, how many 250 industries run in building a house? You know, construction is a very important part, integral part of any developing economy. And I think we are trashing it by not having, a very structured approach and planned approach.
Can I suggest to you something? In Mumbai, we were having previously these restrictions. I'm trying to reply to your point, which you raised it. I think probably you need to go back and convince Mamta Didi that they should give the freedom of any development, whether you want to develop retail, whether you want to develop commercial, or whether you want to develop residential. In Mumbai, typically previously, we were having the different zone and no cross activity was permissible. Now, Mumbai DC rules are comparatively, they have changed vast. Any industrial plot you can convert into commercial and residential. The municipal commissioner has a powers to sign the file, Mumbai, Pune, all the cities. So very, very simple they have made it. Previously it was a conversion was a state government subject, number one. Secondly, we don't have any restriction. You can build commercial, you can build residential, you can build the hotel, and you can do anything as far as you follow the rules regulation. Because public buildings has a different site and parking norms, residential has different. But they have made it very simple. I will request you or suggest you be in touch with some of the architects, follow the Mumbai DC regulations.
Actually, the point is not that. You know, it comes to the retail.
To interrupt. I'm so sorry to cut in, but for the best interest of time, we could just take the rest of the questions offline, please.
Thank you so much for your time. A round of applause for the panelists, please.
On behalf of the entire audience, I'd like to thank all the panelists for coming up here and sharing their views and expert opinions. Thank you so much. Could we please have a huge, huge round of applause?
How